Guys, we have some interesting news. It seems there's a Microstrategy of China. Its name is called Me2, and it has just sold all its Bitcoin and Ethereum. Now, it's not very much Bitcoin, at least compared to the real MicroStrategy. The Chinese one isn't that big of a deal. But why are they selling at the top of this bull run? Is it because they think the bull run is over? Is it because the Chinese government is forcing them to? Or might it be something more sinister and they know something? Let's actually get to the news first because it's kind of like a little bit interesting what they actually did. They only had 940 Bitcoin and 31,000 Ethereum. And of course, they actually sold to Japan's MicroStrategy, which is called Metaplanet. And Metaplanet now has over 2,000 Bitcoin in reserve. They had 1,100 before. Now they have 2,000 after absorbing 900 from Me2. Now, why would they sell? We're in the bull run, and I think there's a lot more to go. And they must have noticed that as well. Do they think it's actually over? Are they looking at charts, graphs, whatever, and thinking, well, we had a good run up to 100,000. We're encountering some resistance, and now we think it's going to go down. They sold the Ethereum too because they said, well, if Bitcoin's going down, then Ethereum is going. Do they really think that? I don't really know. I don't think so. It could be that the Chinese government is like, you have to sell because we don't support Bitcoin. You gotta buy our CBDC. And if you don't, we're gonna send our ninjas in at night and destroy you. Now, that definitely might be the case. The Chinese government has not been very accepting to cryptocurrencies. They allow you to hold them, but they don't really allow trading or buying any goods or services with them. They want the official Chinese yuan or possibly the CBDC. Or are they more sinister? Now, this could actually be a possibility of why they sold, because they're going to crash Bitcoin. And then, because they know it's going to crash, because China's going to do it, they sold. And after it crashes, they'll buy it at much lower price. Could that be it? And you're wondering, how would they know? Well, remember, the hash rate thing. China does control more than half the hash rate. Now, that's a little bit of kind of maybe a mistaken narrative. We'll just say more than half the hash rate is located in China. Not more than half the individual miners, which is the one producing the hash rate, but the pools, the mining pools, as I've mentioned before, are the one located in China. The two located in China have over 50% of the hash rate. Now, that is a problem, and that's why I'm against the U.S. Strategic Bitcoin Reserve right now. I don't really care if Florida has one, because I don't live in Florida. So if they lose all their money, it doesn't really affect me. But for the U.S. one, that would actually affect me. So I don't want the U.S. to have a strategic Bitcoin reserve yet until they solve this problem. Now, the U.S. has a mining pool as well, and it actually holds a large amount of hash rate as well, but not as much as the Chinese ones. The U.S. ones are mainly for the pools of like major U.S. Mining facilities, like, Marathon and stuff, where the Chinese ones are where the individual miners prefer to go. Now, I don't really know why the individual miners prefer the Chinese pool. Maybe it's because of taxes or some other reasons. I'm not really sure. But they have significantly more hash rate than the United States, and put together, they have more hash rate than everywhere else. So we know the Chinese government, right? They probably know where these pools are, and they can probably commandeer them at any time within very short notice, because they can just send, the People's Liberation Army in and liberate all your Bitcoin hash rate. And then now they couldn't actually take your Bitcoins. That's not what happens when they control more than the hash rate. But they can actually double spend, at least for a short amount of time. Now, you are right in thinking that the people can actually just shift away their hash rate to another pool. That's absolutely true. But that takes time for people to actually react. And by the time they react, they might have already spent plenty of Bitcoins, which they could actually use to perhaps crash the Bitcoin network. They do that, Bitcoin goes back down, they kind of like cut it out, and then Me2 buys in at a much lower price because, Bitcoin network has had kind of a foobar. And people are trying to recover from it. Prices dropped a bit, and then they buy even more Bitcoin than they had. Because let's be honest, they buy $100,000 right now. They're probably not buying too much, but if they buy at $50,000 or lower, they can buy a lot more. Now, that's just a theory. Hopefully, it doesn't happen. And there is more complexities into the government just commandeering the Bitcoin. But I have to remind you that the Chinese government is much, much stronger in their country than the U.S. government is in our country. and they can pretty much do anything they want. I think the timing, it would take quite a little bit more time than what I actually just said, but it is very, very possible. So that's something to think about. Not really something to be afraid about, but know that the Chinese MicroStrategy has sold its Bitcoin to the Japanese MicroStrategy, and perhaps they know something, perhaps they don't, but it is something to keep an eye on. And hey, if you're one of those miners and you're like sticking your hash rate into the Chinese pools, switch over to the Uncle Sam's pools. Uncle Sam will welcome you, and if you switch to Uncle Sam's pools, it's a much higher possibility that we will actually get a US Bitcoin reserve, because as soon as we hit the 50% mark, to be safe, I want the US to hit the 55% mark in hash rate. I will support a strategic Bitcoin reserve because I want to make sure that if a government manipulates Bitcoin, it's going to be our government and not their government. I would prefer that no government manipulate it, but I'd rather have the US government manipulate it than the Chinese government manipulate it, because I live in the US and that just makes me feel better. All right, like and subscribe, hit that bell notifications button, and I will see you guys later.